Okay, I think we are now Facebook Live. I would like to welcome everyone to the May 28th, 2020 executive, well, no, not executive, but our Board of Education emergency meeting. We are going to be discussing graduations, and I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we will begin with approval of our agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Agenda is approved 9-0. And so we are going to open the conversation with the 2020 graduations for Union County Public Schools. I will just open this conversation with the fact that we have been working with staff for, Dr. Breedlove, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's been 3 weeks. I think we have been in conversations with your team, and Dr. Houlihan, Mrs. Heintel, and myself have been participating in those Zoom meetings for at least 2.5 to 3 weeks. Beginning with the staff sending out a survey to the public where any parent, any student could submit their choices, what their preferences were and their recommendations for the 2020 graduations. And so I think we began our meeting with your team, Dr. Breedlove, about the time the results from the surveys were coming back. And we have shared those results with the full board so that they could see that unequivocally, let me make sure I have my numbers right here. We had close to 1,800 participants that said that that what their wishes would be for a graduation, and their number one choice was no virtual graduation and a traditional ceremony later in the summer or fall if need be or if possible. Their second choice was a hybrid graduation on the scheduled date, which we're cutting it close with that. So off the chart, question number 2, we had almost 900 responses that their preference by and large is an in-person stadium graduation maintaining social distance, and the least popular was a virtual graduation. So I think it's important to get those survey results back out to the public. And Michelle Morris, I think we asked you if you would post those on board docs so that the public could see those the results from the surveys.
Are we the board docs? Yeah.
I'm sorry, 2 people were speaking.
So they're on board docs. I'm sorry.
Michelle Morris.
They're on board docs. I put them on.
Okay, Mrs. Heintel.
Are we going to go next to the governor's orders? Would you like me to take that, or you want to take that?
I just wanted to get through the introduction and
Okay.
and for it to be publicly known that we have been actively working on this and running different scenarios based on the surveys, and for anyone on social media or otherwise to think that we have not been actively working on this or trying to get the parents' voice or the students' voice heard. I hope that everyone did participate in the surveys that were released about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We have about 3,400 seniors, and I believe we got just under 1,800 responses. So with that being said, I will also say that while we began working through these with Dr. Houlihan and Dr. Breedlove's team, to go through this and look at everyone's wishes for graduations. We got our governor, we were about ready to make an announcement, and then the governor made his announcement that he was moving to phase 2. And so we, Union County Public Schools, we were very hopeful that outdoor attendance would be moved to plus or minus 150 people. And so to say that we were very shocked when the phase 2 announcement said that mass gatherings would be 25 people outside would be an understatement. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Mrs. Heintel, and she can give a rundown to get us all on the same page.
Okay, and so exactly like Mrs. Merrill said, we were discussing phase 2 and what we were hearing Governor Cooper would do. And in the May 20th order, when he did phase 2, he did a more modest phase 2 than what everybody thought. But there was an exception in the executive order on May 20th that said the prohibition on mass gathering does not apply to educational institutions. So at that point, we thought, and the FAQs did not mention graduations or anything with respect to that prohibition not applying to schools. So we were under the idea that we could do graduations like we normally do, or like South Carolina's doing in stadiums, allowing 2 to 4 people watch it and do social distancing. So on Thursday, the 21st, that's what we thought. And on the 22nd, on Friday, the governor revised the FAQs for Executive Order 941. He didn't tell anybody that it was revised or amended or updated. It was still dated May 20th, but it had 3 additional pages and a lot of additional information in it. And basically it said that it does not apply to the schools to do that, that we had to we had to adhere to the mass gathering limits of 10 indoors and 25 outdoors, because the mass gathering limits included auditoriums and stadiums and arenas. So that's what we were on that. And also in there, it went directly to in-person high school graduations being allowed in phase 2. And it says, this exemption was not intended to allow for large in-person events such as graduation ceremonies. And that's where we started to think, okay, we're not going to be able to do this in like we thought we were going to be able to do it under the governor's phase 2. We want our students in Union County Public School to have the best graduation that they could possibly have. But Governor Cooper is not allowing us to do the things that we would normally do for our students. And I call on people to ask him why he's not allowing it. In South, we hear all the time on social media and emails, well, South Carolina is doing it, and why can't we? Because the governor in South Carolina allowed it to happen, and the governor in North Carolina has not allowed it to happen. So that's the space we've been in. We've been trying to give the best we can do with the survey results saying that they want an in-person in the stadium graduation. So we've talked to people in South Carolina, and we haven't been able to rent spaces or anything across the border to try to do something there. So that's kind of where we've been with respect to the government and the governor in phase 2. And that's kind of where we are tonight.
So I just thank you, Kathy, for explaining all that. I just want to be very, very clear that the governor's phase 2, ooh, lightning, guys. Okay, phase 2 specifically says limits an event that brings together more than 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. Educational institutions are exempt from these mass gathering requirements. So just imagine how excited we were to be able to honor those surveys and our Union County Public School students and say, we're gonna be able to let these seniors and their families come back to their school one more time and cross the stage and graduate in front of their parents. And then the governor and his team went back and edited this document to say, oh, we didn't intend it. That wasn't the spirit of our order. And then they, snuck in a FAQ to basically kind of slap us on the hand and say, no, you may not have it in your stadiums. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that every time we think we've got something ready for Union County Public Schools, the governor changes his language. And because of my frustration, and I'm sure, and I don't want to speak for Mrs. Heintel, but it's safe to assume she's frustrated. That's the purpose of tonight's emergency meeting, to pull all 9 elected officials together across Union County for us to decide what we want for Union County Public Schools. And I will begin. I'm going to read one thing for the public on DPI's COVID-19 guidance on high school graduation ceremonies dated May 1st. They say decisions around whether or not to conduct graduation ceremonies will remain at the discretion of the local school boards and superintendents. Districts and schools are encouraged to engage with students and families, which we did through surveys, on best solutions for our communities. Plans should include consultation with local public health officials and current state and local public health requirements and other questions related to health and safety. We've done that. Jared McCraw has been in constant consultation and communication with Union County's health department. But I do want on record that at every turn, they told Mr. McGraw that they would not approve our graduation plans. Dennis Joyner, Donald Moyer told Jared McCraw that he would not allow us to have graduation ceremonies in our stadiums. But yet DPI said it's at the discretion of local school boards and superintendents. Additionally, districts and schools should seek guidance with their local board attorneys, hello, Mrs. Morris, and local law enforcement. We've spoken to Sheriff Kathy during our planning process. If local school leaders elect to hold graduation ceremonies, then those ceremonies must comply with the requirements of the executive order. We've explained to everyone the May 20th executive order, phase 2, in effect at the time of our graduations. And then DPI says that you can have a drive-in graduation, you can have a drive-through graduation, you can have an individualized ceremony according to these, 10 by 10 indoors or 25 outdoors, or you can do a virtual hybrid virtual ceremony. So I'm going to stop there and turn it over to the board. I open it up to my board members.
I'd like to say something, please, Ms. Merrill. First of all, it is the board's decision. It is not the superintendent's or staff decision on what we do. The superintendent works for the pleasure of the board. Let me make that clear. Apparently there's some miscommunication on social media. Dr. Houlihan does not have a vote on this board.
I've also seen on social media that he's a member of the board.
Yes, I've seen that too.
He is our superintendent.
He's our superintendent. He does not have a vote on this board. So protesting or quote unquote parading in front of his house is highly inappropriate.
And bringing the media in front of his home where his children live.
Exactly, where his wife and kids are, it's ludicrous. As a parent,
Disappointing. It's disappointing. Union County should be better than that.
you're right. 100%, you are right. It's just a unnerving feeling as a parent to have somebody come to your home and do something in that manner because you don't like this or that. That is so inappropriate.
So totally agree. Yes, it was highly inappropriate, and shame on the media for doing that. Yes.
Could not agree more. So, board members, what are your thoughts when I read DPI's statement that this is at the discretion of our local school board and superintendent, and to engage with our students and families and communities and consult with local public health officials and to seek guidance from our local board attorney and law enforcement, but yet we must comply with the phase 2 executive order that we can only have 10 per room or 25 outside.
Ms. Merrill, may I offer a comment?
Absolutely.
This is Gary Sides, just so everybody's clear who to blame. I'm just going to throw this out there. We're obviously have a terrible lack of leadership from the governor of our state. We're trying to fumble our way through and not deprive these kids of one of the most important events of their life. I will support, and if necessary, offer a motion that we make arrangements to make in safer arrangements as possible to hold graduations at school stadiums here in Union County if other facilities are not available outside of the state. And for our smaller early college and South Providence, smaller groups, if they can make arrangements in school gymnasiums or auditoriums, then they can proceed in that fashion. But I'm prepared to go our own way on this. I won't speak for anyone else on the board, but I'll just put that out there as a starting point.
And I just want to say that Mrs. Helms is having bad weather in her area and she's on hold. Mrs. Morris trying to call back in. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sides.
So, so can I ask for clarification on his motion? Gary, do you mean that we would, that it would be all at once or in groups, or what exactly are we doing?
I'm saying as close to a traditional graduation in the school stadiums, and then to work out the logistics of make it happen. If we can reasonably and do it in smaller groups for some of the smaller schools, yes. If not, then it would be as close to a traditional graduation as possible, with trying to do our best with social distancing, limiting the number of tickets for family and friends, and using any safety measures that we can.
Mrs. Merrill?
So we just, no.
Matt Helms.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'd say we do everything we can to go to South Carolina and have a traditional graduation if possible.
So I would like to hear from staff if we have heard from our contacts in Fort Mill, Rock Hill, Lancaster. Has anyone gotten confirmation? I believe staff was asked to reach out to see if South Carolina would host Union County Public Schools to do this.
I'll let Dr. Bazin answer. I'll begin by saying that I do believe that staff has reached out to Winthrop University. We use Winthrop University's Coliseum to do graduations in a normal environment. It's my understanding that that is not going to be a possibility. They do not have a football program or a football stadium. They do have a baseball stadium, but I do not believe that was going to be viable as offered. I know that I do believe that Winthrop was actually reaching out to Rock Hill and Fort Mill about their own graduations, just to try to figure out how to figure that out for the university. Sam, if you want to add any more comments, I can let you go. But I do not believe that we were able to contact or get into touch with, as of yet, with Fort Mill or Rock Hill. But Sam, if you want to confirm that.
Yes, sir. Good evening, board. We have communicated with our partners at Winthrop. We have not communicated with any of our colleagues in the public school systems there. We have not sought opportunities to use their stadiums. That is something that we can do and will do based on direction from this board, but I regret that we have not done that at this time. No, sir.
You know what? I thought Mrs. Heintel or Mrs. Helm, someone had indicated that we would have reached out to like Rock Hill or Fort Mill and our colleagues.
Yeah, I thought that we had, and I talked with Dr. Bazin to confirm, and unfortunately we had not. I think there was some confusion between Winthrop making those calls to Rock Hill and Fort Mill. We certainly are available and will be doing that if necessary, but I do not believe that they were able to reach out to anyone.
Can we do that tomorrow at 8 a.m.? Contact the colleges and other high schools that are approximately the same size as ours so that we can get this expedited.
But that would mean we would not be making a decision tonight, right? Or
Well, it can be Plan B.
okay.
Right?
Well, what we can do tonight is entertain the idea that we want to honor the 18 people who participated in the survey, that we support an in-person graduation, and that our first choice is in our home stadiums, if possible. And if that is not going to be possible, which I think the board needs to discuss that, then we can say Plan B or C is to reach out to South Carolina to host our high schools.
Well, I think we need to do that tomorrow just as a backup. But before I lost internet, and I apologize for that, the storm is passing over me right now, is all of this lays at Governor Cooper's feet, 100% of it. I highly encourage parents and students not to email his office, but to call his office. His phone number is area code 919-814-2000. Let me say it again, 919-814-2000. By calling them, a lot of times emails just get passed over, but calling them, letting them know where you stand will help tremendously to hopefully change his mind and get us into our own stadiums, the ones that do have stadiums, and we can work on an alternate plan for those that don't have it. But let him know where you stand, and you want your child to be in a graduation with all of their students, all of their classmates. That personally, I think we need to have a waiver if this is allowed.
South Carolina governor did a waiver for high school graduations.
If you come in, you are aware of what risk that you're opening yourself up to, and that what potentials are there, and that you're aware of that. So that does need to play a part in people's mind and their decision making. But I encourage everyone to reach out to Governor Cooper first and foremost, so that we can have our graduation, our students at their home school for the last time.
I agree with you completely, Mrs. Helms. I think that the governor needs to give each school district its local control of how to hold their graduations, and not exactly, as long as there's social distancing and everything else that's required. I don't understand why we can't do it. But unfortunately, right now it is in the hands of Governor Cooper, and he is the only one who can change that decision.
And again, I'm asking you to call him. Email him too if you'd like, but call his office. I've got that phone number off his website. So please reach out to him and let him know where you think.
Christina, I think that's a great idea. And I would also recommend that if people, want to, get a waiver, that it wouldn't hurt to contact the State Board of Education and DPI, because I'm not clear on why they haven't asked the governor for a waiver for our seniors to graduate. So I would include the state board, DPI. I would include Superintendent Mark Johnson, Deputy Superintendent David Stegall, and Deputy Superintendent Beverly Emery. We need everyone to start representing the class of 2020, and not just representing K through 11, and honoring the class of 2020, because I'm just going to say it one more time. The class of 2020 has lost enough.
I want to say.
Let's, I like to ask a question.
Well, I want to say I agree 100% with what Gary Sides said just a minute ago. If we do need to try to petition the governor, I have so little faith that he is going to change anything that he's done. There's been no evidence that he would move. I would vote and support anything as aggressive as we can to honor the wishes of the survey we provided for our students and parents. And the South Carolina thing would be wonderful. That's still way up in the air at this point. I think the time for waiting on this may be past. We're really getting to a point where we need to make a decision and let people know. And as he said, I'll restate, I'm not afraid to go on our own here and do what we need to do to give our students the opportunity. You said it all. The class of 2020 has lost enough. It's time for us to do something.
And I just want to say again, according to DPI's May 1st document, it does say that graduation ceremonies remain at the discretion of local school boards and superintendents, and that we need to consult with public health officials. We've consulted with them. We're encouraged to engage and get students and families. We've done that. We've consulted with our board attorney. We've consulted with Sheriff Kathy. We probably need to reach out to Officer Gillum for Monroe City Police. I have not done that, need to do that. But we need to figure out this executive order that did say that educational institutions are exempt from mass gathering requirements. And I understand that they came back and they tried to walk that back.
I guess what we have, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
I think what we have to do now is, as well as everybody getting in touch with Governor Cooper, we need to have Plan B. We need to have a plan to get graduation done, because I think I agree with Mr. Kiker that there's no chance he's going to change his mind. So I think that we need to come up with a plan that gets something done. Mr. Sides has laid something out, and we should talk about that as well, and any other ideas anybody has. I agree that the stadiums would be great places to do. We have some high schools that have some construction at their stadium right now, so they would have to do it in a gym or someplace else, and we may have to hold them in smaller groups instead of large groups. But I do think that we need to get that ball rolling, I guess is what I'm saying.
So
Thank you.
I think what I can do to facilitate this conversation is to remind everyone that we do have a motion on the floor. I will entertain a second, or we can go back and we can define the 10 by 10 per room conversation, or the 25 outdoor conversation, or I will stop here if someone wants to make a second to discuss Mr. Sides' motion.
So
Can you
Mr.
repeat- Can you repeat the motion? I lost power or lost the internet when that was going on. So can you repeat the motion, please?
The motion is to hold as traditional as possible using all available safety guidelines and social distancing at our school stadiums here in Union County.
Can you remind us which stadiums are which stadiums are not available?
Sun Valley High School,
Monroe
High School, Cata, and Union County Early College. And with that being said, Wingate University has said that they will work with us to accommodate our schools. And but I'm not sure that we heard from South Piedmont Community College.
So I was hopeful that Sun Valley's might be ready for even a temporary occupancy certificate, but given the fact that it's been raining again for almost 2 weeks, I don't know where we are with that. So that is something we're going to have to check in with Mr. Strickland and Mr. Burnett, and whether or not we could get a temporary occupancy certificate from the county to host something at Sun Valley. Monroe's track is, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Price.
Oh, Mr. Price, I'm sorry.
Yeah, mine was directed toward Jared. I'd like to hear what his thoughts and his conversations with the health department, what their power is over shutting us down if we were to go with Mr. Side's recommendation. And then also from Michelle, who represents our board from a legal standpoint, what the ramifications could be.
I'm going to say just, and this is up to Mrs. Morris, legal advice should not be in open session. So just reminding.
And just for clarification, we did receive legal advice from our general counsel in closed session, but we can hear from Mr. McCraw.
Thank you, Ms. Merrill. Board members, I've had several conversations with Dennis Joyner, our local health director. I've consulted him on each phase we've been through. He referred me back to the May 1st document that Ms. Heintel referred to earlier. That was the style of graduations that he would support. That was the DPI recommendations. If we decide to go with in-stadium or in-auditorium graduations, the thing we discussed was we need to make sure that we follow social distancing guidelines, such as being 6 feet apart from other people or other families. We need to make sure that we encourage hand washing with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. But
Jared, I hate to interrupt you, but correct me if I misunderstood, but my notes say that you informed us that Dennis Joyner and Don Moye told you they would not allow us to have graduations in our stadiums.
Miss Merrill, the exact language, he said he could not support that at this time because that was not the guidance from DPI, and it also went above the phase we were in, which we initially talked it was phase 1 of the COVID-19, and since we've gone into phase 2, it's not changed a lot. It's still 25 people gathered together outdoors. So that was the reason Dennis Joyner did not offer his support. He didn't feel it was in line with what the governor's executive order said, and it was not in line with the May 1st DPI graduation documents, where they recommend certain types of graduation.
Mr. Price, did that answer your questions? And I just want to remind everyone.
I guess my follow-up.
I just want to remind everyone we have a motion on the floor. We do not have a second, but yet we're having a conversation.
Second.
I'm sorry, who offered the second?
I did.
Whose I did?
Travis.
Okay, thank you, Travis. Okay, so we have a second. Okay, now we can talk all we want to.
I think that we should, I understand what everybody's saying with putting as many as we can into the stadium, but we should also have a backup plan that limits it to 25 people. I think we could still do something where we could stage it well enough so that you had 7 graduates, 2 parents, so that would be 21 in groups, and then administrators on the stadium floor with a makeshift stage, or it can be and we can circle people in and out of it. It may take a day, a couple days, or whatever. That principals would be better in a better position to tell us how something like that would work.
I am not again. I'm just going to speak for myself. If we have to break this into multiple ceremonies, then we are not honoring what our seniors said that they want to be together.
And I hear you on that. I guess if we could Facebook Live or somehow stream each one of them and put them together, but I hear you. I mean, the other idea is the one that we've talked about, where we stage everything in the school, 10 per classroom with all 400 or 500 students, and they grow in groups of 10 to the gymnasium where there's a makeshift stage. They can go over it and all that kind of thing. I guess those are the other ideas have been drive-ins and things like that, but I hear what you're saying.
So I would be interested in the board's opinion, all 9 members. If we go with football stadiums and there's thunder and lightning and everything just like tonight, what are we going to do? So do we want to stick with stadiums, or are you open to auditoriums?
Many auditoriums in our high school are barely fit the senior class, let alone anybody else.
No, but the senior class would have to stay 10 by 10 in a classroom. Yeah. We would only be bringing 10 in at a time to cross the stage. So the thought is that every senior gets assigned a parking space number. The senior and their family arrives. The senior reports to their classroom that they've been assigned to, and there's 10 students per classroom. And then at some point, our junior marshals will come get that classroom, take them to the auditorium or the football stadium, whatever, and they get to cross the stage. And then they either go back to their car with their family to watch it stream live, or they go back to their classroom to watch it on the monitors live or their personal devices live. And they're all able to cheer for their friends or whatever, or if they choose to go back to their vehicle. And then when the last senior crosses the stage, then all of our seniors would be asked to come to the front of their vehicle, and the staff, the principals and their staff, will parade to that parking area, and all the seniors can come to the front of their vehicle, and the principal can pronounce them the class of 2020, and they can turn their tassels together, throw their caps in, and then a drone or whatever would capture the entire class together, turning their tassels and tossing their caps. That is one idea that we have thrown out.
Okay, I have one question. I like the idea. Would parents see their student graduate on Facebook Live or live streamed, or would they go into the school to see it? Just to clarify, and I apologize for my bad reception. We have no power at our house, so I'm sitting in front of Wesley Chapel Elementary trying to do this.
So according to what I heard from staff, and I will turn this over to Sam Baisden for clarification, but what I heard from our 2 or 3 weeks of meetings, of our Zoom graduation meetings, was that if we did have to stage our parents to come into the building, then we're probably, if you have 300 or 400 seniors, then it would potentially take multiple ceremonies and multiple days to get through all 300 or 400. And then again, all of our seniors would not be there together. Sam?
Yes, ma'am. You captured my concerns exactly. We feel like our staff could get our seniors, with our staff, we could move them in groups, keep them distanced, and keep them moving pretty quickly. Not as quick as a regular graduation, but we think we could get them all in one sitting. The concern our team of principals had was if we try to reunite, and the logistics associated with having the lineup of parents, the lineup of children, getting once you put parents in, now you can have fewer seniors in that auditorium at once. So now you've got longer walks and, just something as simple as, a minute per senior could be 400 minutes, where we feel like if the parents aren't in there, that we could do it more efficiently. So it's kind of a balance between the priority.
For meeting the drive-in graduation as defined by DPI, because we're assigning, we're doing a drive-in and the families will be watching it via drive-in. And Sam, we also discussed that you were going to investigate, I don't know if you have an answer for us tonight, but that each family would be able to tune into a radio station to hear the ceremony live. But we have spoken with our technology team as far as ensuring that we could do this Facebook Live so that everyone in their vehicle could watch on their laptop or their mobile device. Have you gotten any information on that bandwidth for tuning into a radio station?
No, ma'am, we haven't nailed down a vendor that can promise us all of that at each school, but we have worked with our technology department, and that's using our resources rather than trying to partner with a vendor. So that may be a safer solution for us, but we do not have a broadband FM vendor identified yet. No, ma'am.
So I have something to say. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I feel like I'm in and out.
I'm sorry.
I agree. Our students deserve the best ceremony, like the best graduation ceremony. And there's a difference between ceremony and graduation. Our students will graduate, but if we plan to give them a ceremony, it should be the best ceremony. I hear many of us saying, well, we could do this, that, whatever, or our students deserve the best ceremony. And with the pandemic growing, we're putting our students up for an expectation. And what happens if we are unable to give them that ceremony that many of us had said, whatever, we could do this, blah, blah, or whatever has been said. I want our students to get the best ceremony. So do we have a different plan, or another plan rather?
So what's your idea for that? Yeah, what's the idea for that then? What do you need?
I'm opposed to having a ceremony if we are unable to give them the best.
What's your definition of the best? Because we've identified stadiums, auditoriums, drive-ins, drive-throughs, and virtual and hybrid. So which one would meet your definition of best, or what do you envision as a best ceremony?
I like the idea of a virtual ceremony, but you did share that the survey was opposed to.
That was their last choice, right?
We have a motion and a second.
Yeah, so the motion, I believe, said to hold traditional. I'm sorry, what?
I apologize. Go ahead.
Was someone speaking? I'm sorry. Michelle,
I believe
Michelle,
that
would you read back what you have as the motion?
I believe that Candace was still talking. Sorry.
Move forward. Go ahead.
Donna would probably be able to do that better than I could because she's keeping
Okay.
that meeting.
Donna, can you read back what you have as the motion on the floor? And you would have to unmute when you're ready.
Yes, just a moment. It was read twice. Just a moment. Gary Sides said to hold as traditional as possible using all safety guidelines at our stadiums here in Union County. Sun Valley, Monroe, Cata, and Early College do not have stadiums. Wingate will work with us to accommodate is what I put following that. But to hold a traditional as possible using all safety guidelines at our stadiums here in Union County.
At school stadiums. Yep, that's what I have too, Donna. Thank you. Okay, and Mr. Kiker seconded the motion. Are there any other comments or questions from the board members?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment with regards to that motion. I'd like to offer up, I think that logistically that is gonna be virtually impossible for us to be able to predict the weather. There are going to be concerns with it being outside with heat during the day, with people remaining in cars, with cars being mandated to remain off. I don't think that's a viable option for those reasons. The heat and the unpredictability of the weather patterns of thunderstorms. So I'd like to just offer that up as a reason why we should not consider this and try to do the best with entertaining an indoor venue to be able to still have as traditional as possible of a ceremony.
And I just want to clarify, Mr. Moriel, engines were only to be off if you did the drive-in ceremony and the ceremony was being held in the parking lot.
So
not if it was being held at the stadium or the auditorium.
Right, but I think under the governor's guidelines, it's 25 people in a stadium unless we can get down to South Carolina. Is that correct?
That is correct, but if they're crossing the stage in the auditorium or the football stadium, you could keep your engines running in the parking lot.
Can I add something, please?
Yes.
Just a few years ago, when I graduated from Piedmont, we had our ceremony out on the football field in the middle of the day. There's no rule. We lived, yes, in our horrible polyester cap and gowns. There's no rule saying what time we have to have it. We can have it in the morning or in the late afternoon. Actually, Monroe High School, when they do theirs, they have it at dusk, and so does Forest Hills when they have it at their football stadiums. So we don't have to have it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the heat of the day, that it can be at dusk or at dawn or whenever. So it's not a set time that it has to be there. Now, I understand about the thunderstorms and the way the weather is so unpredictable right now. I think that's a good plan A, but if, a week or two out, I still think we should have a plan B in case. And that's what we had to do when I was graduating, is there was a plan B in place if it rained. This is what will take place if it rains, if the weather's not permissible.
So could we just offer a friendly amendment, and I will have to rely on my board members to do this, a friendly amendment to move it inside in the event of inclement weather?
I will be glad to accept that friendly amendment.
You'll have to make the amendment, I'm sorry. Or someone's going to have to offer the amendment.
I offer the friendly amendment to my original motion. I would just like to add this comment. I don't support moving to South Carolina to utilize an outdoor stadium there. I think I don't want them this crazy time to run us out of our own county. Just escaping across the border because we can't get any leadership or clarification from the state makes no sense. Now, I understand the objections to having it outside because you're gambling with the weather around your best arrangements. But I don't want to go to South Carolina just to be able to have it in an outdoor stadium just because we're getting scared across the border.
Since
I
we don't
guess-
really get legal advice, Mrs. Heintel, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, Mr. Sides, the only thing that I would say is that we would be able to house every graduate in a stadium because that's how South Carolina is doing it. All of their students sit on the floor of the stadium, 6 feet apart, social distancing. They're allowed 2 or 4 tickets to get into graduation. And again, the stands are marked at social distancing. That is what South Carolina gets us, is it gets us everybody together in one graduation.
Yep, one ceremony.
In one ceremony. I understand what you're saying, but it gets us a lot. But I understand that may be difficult. That's why we're talking about another plan.
And normally
that's Mr. Sides' motion, is it not?
Hey, hold on. I'm going to start from the bottom. Matt Helms, please speak.
I was just gonna say, normally we have the graduations in South Carolina anyway at Winthrop. Maybe what, 4 or 5 high schools have them there?
Correct.
So I don't see a difference in that. I mean, if we can accommodate everybody there, it'd be great.
Okay, Mr. Price.
I understood Mr. Sides' motion to be just that of South Carolina. Is that not correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said, Mr. Price.
I said, I understood Mr. Sides' motion to be that of what South Carolina is doing. Is that
Exactly.
not correct?
Outside.
That is the motion I seconded. What?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
in Union County Public Schools stadiums. I think what Matt is referring to is South Carolina stadiums.
No, Mr. Sides' motion was to have a traditional graduation in our stadiums. He didn't say in small groups.
That's right.
He said,
That's correct.
Right.
Correct. And he also said in our school stadiums. He did not say
Correct.
South Carolina.
Correct.
Correct. But I thought we had asked staff to look into South Carolina. We asked him a while ago to do it, but I guess there was some miscommunication on that.
They don't have an answer tonight.
I understand that, but we asked them to find those answers tomorrow.
I honestly
If we're
think
doing the same thing that we were doing in South Carolina, why would we go to South Carolina to do it?
Because
it's legal.
There's an executive order that says otherwise in North Carolina. I understand Mr. Sides' motion would go around that order. I understand that, but I'm simply saying that that's the difference. South Carolina's order in South Carolina allows graduations, and the one the whole class with audience in North Carolina, the order does not allow it.
Understood.
Okay.
Thing is, by going to South Carolina, we are, one, obeying the law. 2 is, I think we're setting a precedence for our kids that if we can do this by obeying the law. I don't like the governor's orders at all. I think they're ridiculous, and I'm very appalled by him right now. And I will remember that when I go vote in November. But I think it's a good example for our students that you might not like the law, but you need to obey it.
Well, so does that mean we're not going to make a decision tonight? We're going to wait for staff to maybe take another week and come back to us?
No, I think we need to make a decision on the small group graduations tonight. Either the one that's indoors at a high school in separate classrooms with 10, and each one going to the either auditorium or the gymnasium, or the one in small groups of 25 at these stadiums. I think we need to make a decision tonight, and hopefully staff can get back to us tomorrow on our ability to use stadiums in South Carolina. We have to make a decision tonight.
And let's be clear,
Yeah, I think
Winthrop
we
has
have a
already
motion and a
voted
second. I
no.
think we need to vote.
Well,
We need to vote on the
We're-
motion.
but we keep having questions and conversations, so as long as everyone has questions and comments, we cannot vote.
so is it legal, Ms. Morris, for us to go ahead and make a decision and then revise it if needs be, if we get an approval from South Carolina?
I'm gonna look at this under Robert's Rules of Order instead of giving you legal advice. The board can make a decision, then you can meet and revise your decision. I think, given the timing though, you probably need.
So we have a board meeting Tuesday night too.
You could have a plan A or a plan B too.
Would it be fair for me to state what our repercussions could possibly be, or just keep that in closed session?
I think it's fair to state what the repercussions are.
It's in the order itself, so I think
Okay.
that's not even that's
I
not
mean,
advice of
it's
counsel.
I
Yeah.
just want all the parents on Facebook to know that there are repercussions financially and otherwise for what people believe we can and should do. And I'll just leave it there. We have received legal advice.
I agree wholeheartedly with Christina when she says that, this whole school year has not been, at least the back half of the school year has not been traditional. So we can't expect a traditional graduation. We need to abide by the governor's orders. While we don't agree with them, we still need to abide by them. And I'm not willing to spend days in jail to go against that, just to hold a traditional ceremony. This is by no means a traditional year. And I don't want to take that away. I want us to be able to work together to come up with a viable solution. And I don't think the one that's on the table right now is a viable solution, as it does go against the governor's order.
And I want to point out too, I'm not comfortable asking staff to go against orders also.
So we are not prepared to make a decision tonight, correct?
Okay. Oh, no, we have a motion and a second on the floor. So all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Can
Yeah,
we
because-
talk so much
Do a
of
roll.
what the motion is anymore?
Okay. So the motion on the floor, Melissa Merrill says aye. Candace Sturdivant,
No.
nay.
Miss Merrill,
Gary Sides,
I think Ms. Helms is asking for a restating of the motion.
can we restate the motion, because there has been so much conversation. I don't know what the motion is anymore.
okay, the motion was to hold as traditional as possible graduation ceremonies with safety precautions, with social distancing at our school stadiums. And then a friendly amendment was offered as a plan B in our auditorium. And please help me out here if I didn't write all of that down correctly.
I think you have it.
And just for clarity, Ms. Merrill, by as traditional, we're meaning everyone in the stadium
Face to
together,
face.
not small groups coming in and repeating.
No, he said social, he said, that we would take safety
Yeah,
and social distancing.
Which
Right.
may,
But it would not be in accordance with the order.
correct. But
Okay,
it may require a limitation of the number of tickets distributed. There,
But your
Okay, well, I
idea
just
is,
wanna-
But anything is going to go against the governor's order over 25.
correct,
It's going to break the law over 25.
correct.
so are you willing, is your motion embody the 25, or you're saying the whole class?
The whole class.
that was my second as well.
So you're saying the whole class on the field 6 feet apart?
Correct.
And
And
where
in
would
the
the
stand-
parents be? Would the parents be in the stands or the auditorium or in their vehicles watching live?
in the stands, utilizing social distancing. So we'll have to figure out what the limitations for tickets will be to view it live, and then using whatever technology we can to broadcast it as well, so that other family members that can't attend in person can experience it, if from nothing else, from a distance.
Mr.
That's-
Basin, can our auditoriums even hold 450 students 6 feet apart? I know that our football fields can, but I'm not sure that our auditoriums could.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. That would be impossible.
Miss Merrill, in 1995, when I graduated from Piedmont, we were in the football stadium, and we had a storm that came up midway through the graduation, and we had to move into the gym at that time, the old gym at Piedmont, and many did not get in, but they were quickly able to work the process out. We were able to move in within minutes and continue the graduation. So I don't see that being a major concern in an event. I know what you're saying, but
in 1995, we were not under a governor's order to.
No, that's a different issue. That's right.
Well, in Travis, I hear you, because I grew up in Eastern North Carolina, almost identical to Piedmont, and ours was on the football field as well. But we did not have a graduation class that was around 440 students, and I think that's part of my concern is, for schools like Porter Ridge, Marvin, or Cuthbertson that have very large senior classes. I don't know.
Yeah, would our stadiums even hold that capacity? That's 6 feet in between everybody. I mean, you're probably skipping 2 or 3 rows, having 6 feet apart. I mean, there's no way.
Hold between 3 and 4,000 people. So
you would have to limit tickets to 2, probably. Yes.
I don't think there's any way, any possibility that we would allow open tickets. I mean, even close to what we'd allowed at Cabarrus Arena or something. We'd have to limit. But
I think we stream it live. I think we stream it live and allow 2 tickets. And the senior will have to decide who those 2 tickets go to.
And Ms. Merrill, on these live streaming from stadiums, I did want to let you know that indoor live streaming, we have all the capacity. There is some concern about stadiums because our only live streaming option is through NAS, which runs our athletic streaming. And that is a subscription account for parents have to sign up for it. So we would have to work with them to identify if they would allow us to have the ability to use that live streaming service.
Right.
I did ask Mr. Parker, and he did have some concerns about a regular live stream through UCPS. We could always use, something like a Facebook Live from a stadium, but a traditional live streaming in a stadium may not be possible unless we have a third party that will allow us to do that. I just wanted to make that point clear.
We could do gymnasiums instead of auditoriums, correct? Because there's bleachers and things like that, the floor of the gymnasium.
But then you're back to
oh, that's right, the 10, yes. But
yeah,
if we're violating orders, we're violating, yeah.
Well, and you're back to, will 1,400 parents fit in a gymnasium? Did I do that right? I don't think I did that right. 400 or 500 students, and then 800 to 1,000 parents. I don't know if we have enough bleachers in an auditorium or a gymnasium to do that for 2 parents.
I would propose, if the board wants to go down the road of an in-person in stadiums, I would ask that we consider a backup plan to be a rain date that would be the same kind of ceremony, but in a stadium to come back to later, if that would be what the board, instead of having an indoor option as a plan B, you might want to consider just a rain date where
rain date.
where there would be a backup plan. And that way, I think trying to balance the logistics in this era of indoor versus outdoor and changing, I would have some concerns on the logistical end of that, that if the board's desire is to have an in-stadium graduation, I would propose that we stick with that with a series of rain dates as a backup for it. So that would be
I
one
like
idea.
that suggestion very much.
And I do as well. And I just also to add, this is going to be purely on a voluntary basis. If there are any students or parents that are concerned for the safety of themselves, a family member, or the students, they are certainly welcome, under no obligation to participate in the festivities. Everyone has the option to opt out if they feel that's in the best interests of their families. I just make sure everybody's clear on that.
And that's an option even during normal times, that all students don't have to walk.
Yes.
I know a lot of students didn't. So it's always an option. That's not a new option. You can choose not to, in this case, for if you feel that your health or your child's health or someone in your family's health is in jeopardy. That's a legitimate concern some people have, and that's perfectly fine.
Okay, so where are we with our motion?
I think we started the vote and left off with Ms. Sturdivant.
So I think unless someone wants to offer a friendly amendment for a rain date, the current motion has the friendly amendment for moving it to the auditorium as Plan B. So I don't know if the board wants to strike that, or if we want to have a friendly amendment offered for Plan B being a rain date.
So I just want to say, if the Plan B is auditorium, it would have to be broken up in groups because we can't.
I'd offer the friendly amendment for a rain date.
Okay.
Add it to Gary's.
And I will be glad to accept that friendly amendment.
That was Todd Price. Okay. Are there any other friendly amendments offered to this motion?
No, but this is still
Just for clarity, what are we doing with these 4 schools that don't have stadiums?
Yes, Christina, yes.
Thank you.
I apologize. I didn't hear Christina's question.
I said this still breaks the governor's rules.
Violates. Yep.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Let me add, it violates the rules at this point. And we're talking about a graduation. How many weeks off? A couple of weeks? Maybe
About a week and a half, 2 weeks. If we wanted to keep the current dates, then it's very short notice unless the high schools come up with a different date.
And I was going to add, Ms. Merrill, from a logistical standpoint, that was another point I wanted to make, is that the current dates as established were obviously going to various different arenas and those kinds of things, that as staff plans this, if this motion passes, we need to do a lot of work on the logistical. So if this is the desire of the board, we will be working feverishly to do things like securing audio, securing photography, securing staging, all the things that have to take place in an outdoor event. And if that takes more time, it might be the end of June before we can deliver on this. We will be glad to report back to the board on Tuesday night if this passes, and that's the desire of the board, to give you an update on where we are with planning. But I did want to make you that point that if we move forward with this, don't bank on the original date of your graduation actually being the date. It might change.
I agree with that, because the original dates were for Cabarrus Arena, Winthrop University, and Wingate University.
That is correct.
And so I think it would absolutely, the date, those dates don't hold anymore, unless the principals decide that they can do it, but the dates as paid for or secured at Cabarrus Arena, Winthrop, and Wingate should be assumed that's not going to happen. Those dates are not going to happen at those facilities.
That is correct.
So we're talking about 2 to 3 weeks out for graduations, right? Or 3 to 4 weeks out, because they were scheduled for the 11th through the 15th, right? Or something in there.
I think my response would be maybe. I don't know. I just wanted the board and the public to know that we, moving forward after the vote, we will begin, and continue researching the work that has to be done to make it happen. If we have schools that are in position to do it, in their stadium as planned, then we will move forward with that original date. But for some schools, that might not be an option.
And okay, I agree that like Mr. Sides just said, that the governor's order could change into phase 3 by then, or abbreviated phase 2. But if it doesn't, then we need to have a backup plan too. I just want to throw that out there, because it does violate the executive order, and we need to deal with that. So
everybody needs to be aware that what we are voting on does violate this order. And as long as you're aware of that, then be prepared to vote.
And let me add to that, perhaps school systems like UCPS taking the initiative to force the issue will force some leadership from the top for our governor to address this issue, and perhaps go back to his original intentions to offer a waiver. So I don't think of it as violating the law as much as trying to get some leadership on having this addressed. And just the same way that our brethren across the line in South Carolina are doing.
Well, I hate to bring up South Carolina because
they have permission. They have permission of their governor to do what they're doing, Gary. Let me be clear on that.
I understand totally that they have permission, but what I'm saying is, if South Carolina can do it, maybe we just need to exert some leadership and try and fill the void, and then maybe our governor will come to light. If not only UCPS shows the leadership, but perhaps there will be other school systems across our state, and this issue will be addressed the way it should, rather than changing the FAQs in the dark of night, if you will.
Okay, I think we have beat a dead horse. I think we have a motion and a second with a friendly amendment. I'm ready to call the vote, and it's either going to pass or fail. And in the event that it fails, then we need to move forward with another plan. So the motion to hold a in-face traditional face-to-face graduation with safety procedures and social distancing at our school stadiums with a rain date. I'm going to go in order, and I need everyone's vote. District 1, Ms. Sturdivant.
Nay, I don't think we're prepared.
District 2, Matt Helms.
Aye.
That was an aye.
Correct.
District 3, Gary Sides.
Sides votes aye.
District 4 is myself, Melissa Merrill, and I vote yes, aye. District 5, Mr. Moriel.
Nay.
Nay. District 6, Mrs. Heintel.
I'm a no.
Nay. At large, Mrs. Helms.
No.
Nay. Mr. Kiker. Mr. Kiker. Mr. Kiker, your mute is on.
I'm voting yes.
Okay, yes.
Struggling with the mute button though.
Oh, sorry. And finally, Mr. Price.
Yes.
So the yeses are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion passes. We did have 4 noes. District 1, 5, 6, and Mrs. Helms. So we have it's 5-4. Motion passes. To have an in-school stadiums, we are going to have safety and social distancing, and we will provide a rain date. Are there any more comments from the board?
One comment I'd like to make, I'd like to give the option, I don't know if it needs to be added or not, but for schools that do not have stadiums, rather than going outside our district, to partner up with a sister school in lieu of going to something like a Wingate. I think that would be a better suit.
Ms. Merrill?
Yes.
I still would like staff to entertain going to South Carolina schools and see what we can have there without restrictions. I think the whole heartburn of voting no, I would love to have our students graduate at their home school. I would love nothing more. However, I'm not okay violating the law, whether I like it or not, and I don't like it. So I still would like staff to see if a South Carolina school in similar size to ours would be willing to help us, and that way we won't have so many restrictions on how many people can attend.
I agree with you completely, Mrs. Helms. I have the same thing. I would love to have our stadiums filled with people and graduations be traditional, but I have a heartburn a little bit with the executive order.
Ms. Merrill, I want to recognize my colleagues' concerns about going rogue, if you will, on this. And I would encourage any parents that are going to be participating in this graduation to call and email the governor's office and ask him to change his position on this so that we don't have to force the issue and put my colleagues and others that have concerns about this can be put aside, and we can be granted a waiver for this in the same manner that they're doing in South Carolina for their graduations. So I would encourage everyone to reach out to our governor and implore him to change his mind and grant a waiver in the time that we have until these graduations actually take place.
Can I ask something else, Ms. Merrill? By our next board meeting Tuesday night, I'd like staff to have a firm answer for us for the South Carolina schools, and also potential dates for every school for graduation.
We'll be happy to do that. I hope that we can find an answer before Tuesday in terms of the South Carolina option. I'll ask Dr. Bazin to take lead on that with us and try to get an answer from multiple school systems in South Carolina as soon as possible.
Dr. Bazin, please call Jonathan Phipps with Lancaster County, as I believe they may be willing to work with us.
But also, I'd like graduation dates for both if possible, for every school.
Understood.
Dr. Houlihan, I would also ask, just to make sure in the South Carolina option that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's, that waiver applies for a out-of-state school coming to use the facility. I don't know the legalese on this, but it may only be a waiver for South Carolina schools and doesn't apply for somebody coming across the border.
Mr. Sides, I think things have changed in South Carolina since all the graduation plans went into place, and they've opened up most of all South Carolina. So I'm not even sure the waiver is needed anymore, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they could lease or let non-South Carolina schools use their stadiums, I think is what I'm hearing.
I hear you.
But
I too remain hopeful that the governor will do something, but if not, we have a plan. And if the if something happens to that plan, we can do it in smaller groups as well at the stadium. So that works as well.
I think there's some confusion that the governor's orders are just at whim. They are binding. They are by law. It's the governor's orders. It's not as if we can just change it. His law is binding, and I think there's some confusion amongst the Facebook viewers that it's not. It is law.
Yeah, and the last thing that I would like, or that I would like to see, is we go through all this planning. We are indeed going against the governor's order, and everybody's there for the ceremony, and authorities are there to break it up. And then all of this planning, all of this expense, all of this excitement is wasted.
What I heard the governor say today, and I know that he was referring to some kind of race. I apologize. I don't remember if it was Alamance County or what it was. If someone knows, please speak up. But what I heard the governor say today, that it is up to the local authorities to enforce those. You know, either Sheriff Kathy and the Union County Sheriff Department would have to break it up, or the Monroe Police Department would have to break it up.
I believe you're correct. That was a race from this past weekend, and it may have been Alamance County, but that was what he was basically saying. It would be up to the local authorities to step in, and you know, we've had some discussion with the local sheriff's department with that, but it is not a law. I think I misspoke earlier when I called it a law. It is an order, but there's some difference in there.
Well, and I keep going back to.
Can you help clarify what that difference is? Mr. Kiker, could you please clarify what that difference is?
Can you speak to that here? Is that something we
believe it's considered a misdemeanor?
It is.
Which is breaking the law. So I'm sorry, you made the comment, Mr. Kiker. I would just like to see if you could clarify that.
Well, he has made the order, but that is the difference between that and an actual law that's been put in place. That's my understanding. Now, I'm not an attorney. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think there is a lot of difference in what we're dealing with there.
It
is. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What I heard the governor say today is that local authorities would have to enforce it. And if the Union County Sheriff Office and the Monroe Police Department and Stallings Police Department or wherever, if Union County law enforcement were to enforce the governor's order, it would be a Class 2 misdemeanor. And it would be 60 days in jail and $1,000 fine. And I would assume that would be times 11 for 11 high schools.
And I'm fine with the $1,000 fine. It does say in the order itself that pursuant to NC General Statutes 166A 1930A2, the provisions of this executive order shall be enforced by state and local law enforcement officers. So I would assume in this case it would be local, just as they said.
Thank you.
Let's all hope that circumstances change between now and the actual dates of the graduations, and that may allay some of your concerns.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.